Hello, friends, and welcome to another figure study where we appreciate the form in Transformers. And today, taking a look at Master-Made Apollo, the super deformed third-party rendition of Omega Supreme. Now, my background with Omega Supreme is very uninteresting, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit anyway. I always wanted Omega Supreme when I was growing up. It was one of those Transformers that I loved the idea of, looked really, really cool, but I was probably 5 at the time, so I didn't have the money to get them myself. Never really saw them in the store, and of course, being a kid, there were always other toys that were getting my attention, and I ended up crying to my parents to get. So, never got the opportunity to get Omega Supreme for myself. I only ever saw the pictures and absolutely just loved the giant city train tracks, rocket pad thing that was Omega Supreme. So, now we've got this guy. And oh my goodness. Now, okay, this is the first, as of this recording, only Master-Made figure that I own. So, didn't entirely know what I was getting into just because, I never owned one for myself. I saw some videos and that was about it. But wow, the level of everything on this guy is top-notch. I have a fair number of third-party figures at this point, and I think he may actually be the most solid, well-built, sturdy, objectively most awesome one that I have. He's really, really well made. That little thing is ever so slightly off, and that's going to bug me. So yeah, Apollo is Omega Supreme. He's a little bit different, obviously, than the official one. He doesn't have the tracks or anything like that, but he does have the little tank and the base mode and the rocket, which I will be attempting to get closer looks at, but because of the shape and size of this guy, it's going to be a little difficult. So yeah, I am in love with this figure. Just get that out there right now. I love the look, I love the style, I love the everything. I love the color palette. The light gray and the dark gray contrast is fantastic. The little bits of silver are great, the little bits of white are great, the yellows, the reds, it all just works together really, really well. And the color breakup, even in this mode, looks great. It's great. That's basically what I'm saying. Now, let's start with a little bitty tank. Now this tank is, of course, made up of Apollo's head. And it's a neat little tank. I mean, it's got, the cannon and a nice kind of semi-futuristic tank look to it. I mean, if you look at it from the back, then it's like, oh, hey, there's a head. But it's really cool. And I like just all these little molded bits of detail in here for the treads. And I keep finding these points, not just on the tank, but everywhere, where it's oh, what's that? Is that some bad paint? And it's no, it's just really, really tiny, detailed, just really tiny painted details with words and stuff that I can't even read. As I'm recording this, I can't actually read it, but you can kind of see on top of the visor there, it's got some stuff in there. There's all these really tiny painted details all over this thing. And even here, the front of the freaking tank has painted detail. And this is all stuff that you don't even see when he's in robot mode at all. It's just it is fantastic. The amount of detail on this guy, it looks like solid colors from a distance, but there's just tons of detail. And again, I love this little tank. It's so cute and slightly bubbly. Yeah, I'm into the little tank. So put the little tank off to the side. And now comes the difficult part. So this base mode is, this is my version of the base mode, because the thing that's really interesting about Apollo is the fact that he has so many little moving parts and ways that you can adjust things, that like you can fan mode the ever-loving crap out of this guy. And I'm not entirely sure how much of this is, like, I did it as best to stock as I could, but then there are certain little things like bending these areas down here so that I can get a little bit more, like, these little yellow bits can slide over a little more if you bend these slightly, and then you've got these little crane arms that I'll show in a little more detail in a minute, but like, you know, where do you put those? And there's all sorts of stuff that you can play around with. So like, if you don't like a particular configuration of the base, you can easily change things around. He's like really incredible in that regard. So let's try and get this thing a little closer for some detail. And this is a little tricky because he's actually surprisingly heavy, because he's got some pretty dense metal bits in there. But like you can see, there's a lot of little details in here, like even little molded bits in here. And these right here, I keep thinking that these are like chips of paint, but they're not. They're like really tiny, like so tiny the camera won't even focus on them. Really tiny painted details, just all over this guy, and it's incredible. Like right back here on these cranes, which these cranes are great because like you can swivel them around, you can, you know, move them up and down, you can angle these things, and he is covered in ports. So like anything that you like, any weapons you have for other figures or anything like that, you can peg them all over the place on this guy. Just all over the place. So yeah, moving along, we've got some really nice piston detail here. And some of these bits, they're just kind of there to like, you know, break things up a little bit. They don't have any specific defining details. I like this, how it makes like an implied sort of ramp and garage area. Again, with really tiny painted detail there. And then we've got the rocket going up there. And if we swing it around a little bit, you can see the arms that are meant to sort of look like they're supporting the rocket. And yeah, there's like lots of little interesting bits to this guy and the base mode. And you know, I'll show the more interesting details once I can get him into robot mode, because that's a little bit easy. Pardon me, a little bit easier to move around. And there we go. But yeah, this is, I like it. I like this. And there are a lot of different ways you can move things around, so that if you don't like this particular style for the base, you can easily change it. And that's kind of what Apollo is all about, and I really love that, how there's just so many options. Anyway, yeah, so base mode, now onto robot mode. And here is where we see the Omega Supremeness of this Omega Supreme. I don't know, that was horrible. But anyway, Apollo looks so good in robot mode. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, you know, again, great color scheme all around. You've got the telltale giant red claw, the, you know, yellow blastery bit, some nice color breakup on the feet and legs here. Just all over the place, and that nice red strip down the middle. He looks so good. And of course, like the white wings in the back. It all just comes together so nicely. I mean, just wow. He's stumpy and stocky, but he's, you know, in a super deformed proportions, so that's kind of the whole point. And I really, really like it. He's also incredibly posable, which I'll kind of show off a little bit later, but he's like, for such a stout, you know, thick guy, he has lots of moving parts that can go in all kinds of different directions. That sounded weird. Moving on. He's got, you know, again, the telltale Omega Supreme bits, where he's got the giant claw, the giant blaster, he's got that domed face, which, bring him a little closer here. so we can actually look at that face, because that face is great. Like, not only is that head very cool, very Omega Supreme, just very neat. I love this kind of visory look here. He's got this thing, which I'm sure many people have seen, where, you know, he's got his face there. These little yellow bits on the sides here turn, and when you turn them, his expression shifts. He goes from like, okay, yeah, I'm imposing, but whatever, and now he's mad. And that is very, very cool. On top of that, another detail that I thought was really, really cool about this head is if you lift this up, you can actually push the visor back. So you can actually get him with like a lifted visor look, which is really nice. I really, really like that. And here you can kind of see also, maybe even a little bit better, the facial expression changing. It's slight, but it is there, and it's really cool. And then, of course, you can just slide this forward again. And now he is back into his, you know, battle mode or whatever you want to call it. And that's just great. Now, getting the rest of the detail shots in this guy might be a little tricky because he is a little bit weighty. There's a lot of die cast in his legs. Like, most of his foot, like each foot, these yellow bits, the entire yellow bit is metal. So when you put him down, he's not going anywhere. But you can see just so much detail all over the place. Lots of great color, lots of great molding. The only complaint that I can really level at this guy's robot mode, which I'm going to have to move that arm out of the way a little bit, is if you notice on the inside of the hip there, that's nice and clean, but on the inside of this hip, there's a screw. Now it's a dark screw, so it doesn't stand out too much, which I do appreciate, but it does kind of bum me out. Like, because the thing is, that screw is on the back of this leg, so you can kind of see it back there. So it's just like, I get it, they probably just like saved some parts a little bit by putting the... Oh, that's interesting. Is that another feature that I was unaware of? Anyway, sorry. So, yeah, I think like they probably just have the same molded piece for that hip, and they just flipped it around, which it's okay. But it does kind of disappoint me that, you know, one of his hips in the front, when you turn his leg, you got that screw poking out. Even if it is kind of difficult to see most of the time, I know it's there and it bugs me. But anyway, some really nice just vent detail in the front, like exhaust or intake, whatever you want to call it, detail. And again, there are these things that in base mode were up and turned. And there you can see that piston detail, which actually gets covered up when these little knee pads come down. Lots of just really great molding all along here. And then, of course, in the front, these nice, sort of really thick pipes almost. The front of his chest looks kind of like a building. It's just so cool. And then you've got, moving on to the arms, some really nice color breakup here. And again, he's just covered with these tiny little painted details just all over the place. But like, there's that nice color breakup with the yellow and the gray. There's some more sort of air scoops or whatever you want to call them in there. And this is something that I've been noticing as I'm going through here, where he's actually got, we kind of tilt this up a little bit. You can see they molded in like pistons and stuff in his underarms too. And yeah, you can see the spring when you tilt it out so far, but still, that's a nice bit of detail that they did not have to add, and they added, and it is greatly appreciated. And then, like, just all these pipes and pistons and painted bits, and it's so, there's so much detail to this guy. It's fantastic. And even coming from the back, which we saw a little bit of just a minute ago, like, there's all these details on the back of the legs and the feet. Even his butt has some nice detail. Yeah, I said it. And like these little wings on the back too look really nice. And again, just so much molding, so much painting, so many little bits with words everywhere, and it's just fantastic. And he is so cool. And on top of all that, the robot mode is full of variables as well. Again, you can see he's got ports all over the place. He's got them like... If I can move this. You can see he's got like some ports on the sides of his legs here. He's got on his shoulders, on the front, on the side. Does he have any on the back? Yes, he has them on the back too. He has ports actually all along his arms. Like here, coming down here. He has them on the blaster arm as well. He has a port up here. These things can fold out and can do all kinds of different things, and there's just, he's got so many options. There are just so many things you can potentially do with this figure. It is great. It is absolutely great. Now, I'm not going to go into all the possibilities here because there are way too many, but I will go into one of the official modes for this guy, and that is his hammer, which I freaking love, and it's one of the things that also made me really love this guy, because I actually have found that I have a soft spot for Transformers with hammers. So, what you want to do is, you got these bits back here that just pop right out, and this I thought was really cool too. These bits, like this piece here, you can see it's all along back here, and this little peg lines up with this added detail in the back, so it actually looks like it's a part of the molding, like it's part of that piping system. And that's really cool. So we've got these two pieces. All we do is put them together. And another thing worth pointing out, these pieces also can be broken off and, like, you know, added in other places all over the place. You can like pop these off if you want, because you could potentially say, I don't know what you could do with this, but like you could pop these off so that like the handle is, you know, a little bit more handle-like. I don't know. So anyway, we've got this. Put that off to the side. Now we get to deal with these bits. And this was a clever system that they did. There's this little ring that you can't even tell is there along the outside. It's this dark gray, and you push it, and that will unlock these clamps and allow you to take these pieces off. So you can do it there, do it on this side as well. And then putting them back on is really easy, because once these are, you know, pushed back into place, you just click, and they click right back on. That is really, really cool. And underneath those pieces are some really nicely detailed hands. Like he's got just, again, this really cool kind of back piece to the fist there with, again, some neat painting. He's got actual hands that open up and have some pretty nice, like a pretty nice bit of articulation to them. And these are some really cool looking hands. I like the dark fingers with the white kind of background there. And yeah, he's got posable hands hiding underneath his giant blaster bits. Let's fan those out. And yeah, these hands are a little bit weird in that the fingers are like really long, like really narrow. If you look at them like straight on, you can kind of see just how they're like smushed. But I actually really like that. You know, they do what they need to do. They look really good. So anyway, hammer. One of the things we've got to do is we've got to take this yellow piece out. So these panels here actually come up and fold out, and can just fold all of these bits out little by little, and then we've got this yellow piece here which just pops right off, and then we've actually got even more detail, both painted and molded, on the inside here. And even this piece has these gray bits painted around the outside that you never see unless you remove this piece. And now this is something that, like, you can do whatever you want with this, but because this guy is just full of ports and all sorts of things, what I like to do is I take this and I just put it on his shoulder. Oop. Because this is going to be the hand that's holding the hammer, so I just like to pretend that that's, a little bit of added armor or something to help him with the hammer. Have him looking all epic. Okay, so now we've got these two pieces. What we do is sandwich them together and they'll just click. And then they also detach the same way, where you just flip down these little bits there and then they pop apart. And then you slide them back, everything's cool. Okay, so sandwich those together. These flaps can then come all the way down. And then the fingers for this hand all fold in. And this makes the big old hammer piece. And then all we do is take the handle here, the peg's right in there. And a little tight, but there we go. And now we have a hammer. And then just rotate this so that it looks better. So now he's got a big old hammer. And let's get him to hold that big old hammer. He's got a peg hole right in there. So you can just slide this in, just get the peg lined up, which is, there we go, a little difficult to do when reaching around a camera and a microphone. So got that, and you just wrap his fingers around it a little bit. He can't hold it, can't wrap his fingers around it completely because his fingers aren't long enough, but there you go. And yeah, that hammer is not light. I mean, it's not as heavy as the entire figure, obviously, but that is a pretty weighty hammer, and he holds it just fine because he's got some really solid ratchets in there. So, I mean, come on. That is so freaking cool. And now, if you want to get fancy, you can do some posing. Now that is so freaking cool, and this is one of just a million reasons why I love this guy. He is quite posable. He can get some really dynamic poses going. He's got like just so many little bits that can come off and go elsewhere. You can customize the crap out of him just based on the stock parts he comes with. He's got just so much cool stuff going for him. He's got the flip-up visor, which I still can't decide if I prefer it with it up or down because it's cool either way. He's actually posable enough, and I've done this before, where you can get it so that his visor is back, and it looks like you can get his arm up so that it looks like he's pulling back the visor himself, which is just great. Like, I have a lot of fun sometimes posing him where he's just standing there with the hammer on the ground, and he's like kind of just relaxing and holding his visor up, and it's just so cool. But there's one other thing he can do, which I want to show off really quick. Okay, bear with me here. Wait for it. And he has a light up head and chest. And it is very cool. Of course, it's difficult to tell when it's this dark. So let's turn the lights back on. But yeah, there you can see, he's just like, he's got that glowing chest, the glowing eyes, and it looks so cool. This is a feature that, I mean, didn't necessarily need to be in there, but it is, and it's awesome. And it's just, there's like a little button in the front that you click, a little button in the back of his head that you click, and that's that. Now, this is actually the second version of Apollo that I owned. The first version that I got, I ended up having to send back and get a replacement for because the wiring in the head shorted out and the light stopped working after like only a couple of days of very sporadic use. Like, I've actually turned this light on more than the one that I had before this, and I've only turned it on for like a few seconds at a time, like maybe 10 times since I got it. And then the chest just didn't light up at all. So I'm pretty sure this is actually a second run of Apollo because the lights are better. Certain joints that were kind of loose on the original, on the first version that I had, are a lot tighter here. Just things seem a little bit more, I don't know, refined, I guess. But regardless, yeah, Apollo is just, oh, he's so cool. Now, I've heard of Mastermade before. Like, this was not the first time I've seen anyone talking about Mastermade or anything like that. Their Diabolus Rex, their version of Trypticon, I actually am kind of really tempted to get. Also because I could probably take like all of the weapons off of that figure and put them on Apollo. But I was never really tempted by their version of Metroplex because his super deformed proportions were too super deformed for me. But Apollo strikes a very nice sweet spot where he is super deformed, but not overly pronounced. So like his head is larger than it proportionally should be, but not like huge and bulbous. And his hands are a bit larger than, you know, they really should be, but not to the point where it's ridiculous. And this just, proportionally, this works a lot better for me than some of the other super deformed figures that I've seen. And stylistically, this is fantastic. I mean, he's got so many ways you can pose him, so many options, so many different ways, like places you could put stuff for added detail, and I love the hammer option there. It's so cool. I always like, I keep him on. I was watching Akuma's style review, and he's actually the one who convinced me to get Apollo. And one of the things he said was that Apollo makes a great desk toy. And I 100% agree with that because I keep this guy on my desk and at least once a day, I can't help but play with him. I gotta like, you know, transform him or repose him or something. Like I'll switch between using the hammer and the, you know, attached claw and blaster hand thing. I'll change up the face. I'll just play, like, I'll just absentmindedly play around with this visor gimmick because that's just so freaking cool. But yes, Apollo is an amazing figure, and I'm honestly thinking that he might just be my absolute favorite third-party figure that I own, which is saying a lot because I own, you know, because I have Planet X's Vulcan and Make Toys Striker Manus and Perfect Effects Assault Force X and some of the Battle Robo figures that they started putting out, and they're just but he is so good. He's made so well and detailed so nicely and painted so well, and he does all this cool stuff, and just, oh, I love it. I love the look. I love the toy. And if you're on the fence at all, then don't be, because you will not regret any of the money you spend on this guy. Not at all. If you're interested, you will not regret getting him. Anyway, I think I've ranted for long enough. So, thank you everybody for watching. As per usual, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Any combination of those three would make me a happy Rob. And I forgot to mention, but yes, this has been my look at Mastermade's Apollo, and I am definitely a Mastermade fan after this. Anyway, outro, done, all that good stuff. And remember, art, and I would definitely call this that, is more than meets the eye.